Okay, recording is on. Hi everyone, and welcome. This is kind of like my coffee time chat things, but obviously I'm not doing it live, and it's I suppose a bit of a crossover from streaming to private video logs. So this is going to be a bit more like what I might do on my private video logs. Yeah, so there won't be any alerts going off, there's no chat, and it's still probably going to be a bit rambling, but it was inspired by one day, maybe 2 weeks ago, when I was talking about how I felt that I hadn't achieved anything in life. Like I was feeling, I don't know, disappointed or kind of just like feeling like a failure, something like that. Anyway, those were the feelings of that day. I don't remember exactly what it was. And the comments were sympathetic, which was really nice, but it prompted me to think about ideas and concepts and the way to kind of deal with those feelings, or manage, if you like, or experience. And that's sort of what I want to talk about. And I've made some notes. Here are my notes, and I want to cover those. So this is not like a scientific psychological study sort of thing. It's just me with my ramblings and my thoughts and opinions and things. It's not like scientifically backed up or anything. So I'd be interested in what you make of it, and I'm going to put it on YouTube, and then I'll link it. Sorry, as always, itchy nose. Yeah, so it'll be kind of that. Sort of what do you call it, private video log type of thing that I do, which is usually like 99% of the time, maybe a bit less. So I don't share those. They're on a separate channel just called private video log. Anyway, before I go off at a tangent, so let's stick to the point here, the subject. So I've called it Please Don't Cheer Me Up. And what I'm trying to say here, or what I'm trying to ask, is like, I appreciate people being sympathetic if I'm feeling a certain way that is considered negative or bad or difficult. So feelings like disappointment, feeling low. But I want to be allowed to feel that. That's what I mean by please don't cheer me up. And then I want to sort of come back to this. So once I've talked about these other things, I want to come back to it, and hopefully my kind of take or my angle might make a bit more sense. So the kind of headings I've got here, I can read them, is that feeling bad is not a problem that needs to be solved. So that's one thing I'll be going over. The kind of fact versus feeling, and whenever you tell someone you're feeling bad, the fact versus feeling often gets confused. And then looking at feeling like mental health kind of thing, like when it's actually an extreme feeling bad, which is then a psychological condition, which then leads to some level of debilitation. So I want to talk about that, and to look at the physiological side, so the hormonal or neurological side of it. Again, just my kind of readings and musings. Okay, so these two are connected, so I'm going to talk about those as one thing rather than two separate things. Okay, so the first thing I want to go into is this idea of the feeling bad is not a problem. So let me put that up. That'll be the first chapter. Feeling bad is not a problem. And this is quite an interesting one because, and it ties in very well with this idea of don't cheer me up, because if I'm in a psychological state or emotional state, however you want to call it, when I'm feeling anxious, disappointed, sad, depressed, this whole umbrella of what I'm calling, or society is calling, bad feelings, that they're difficult to handle. So, and I'll get on to the whole idea of the degree in a minute. But when you tell someone, right, so I'm telling you, last night I didn't stream because I was feeling like I'm a failure, or that I'm not a good streamer, or those kinds of things. So that is a feeling. And if I tell that to you, that I was feeling this, then quite often when people talk about their feelings, they don't just say it in order to just say it. They're looking for a solution. They want the person listening to actually do something about it. That is the reason that they're telling them. So in normal circumstances, if you've got a good friend, you wouldn't divulge or disclose that you're having these kinds of feelings. You would sort of get on with it or deal with it. It's almost like you just avoid them or sort of pretend that you're not feeling them. And these feelings might be just sort of day-to-day feelings, ups and downs, or they could be due to, you've lost your job, or something stronger like a good friend or relative has died, so the difficulty is much, much more intense. And you're going in between this sort of accepting how you feel to kind of denying how you feel. So all of that can come under this big umbrella term of feeling bad. And those feelings are difficult to handle. But nevertheless, they are just feelings. And what I'm saying I'm just going to write the number down, because I want to create chapters later on. So that's number 1. I should put my glasses on, but I'm in denial about that, or less in denial, now that I have got glasses. So if I tell someone about so-called bad or negative feelings or difficult feelings, my purpose is to just simply tell them. I want someone to listen, and for me, whether I'm feeling good or I'm feeling bad, They're both just feelings. I'm trying not to kind of say this feeling of elation, for example, or this rush of feeling of hype, or a feeling of success or satisfaction. I'm not trying to say they're easier feelings, they're nice feelings, they're more enjoyable, but I'm not calling them good. I'm not trying to categorize them and say these are good feelings, these are the ones that you're trying to go after, and these are bad feelings, and these are the ones that you're trying to avoid. What I'm trying to do is to kind of just level it out and just say these are all just feelings. A bit like, you've got salty food and sour food, and what else is there? Sour, salty, sweet, and bitter. Those are the four, aren't they? Anyway, so let's say there are these just four categories of feeling. So they're just different kinds, and some people like salty, and then other people don't like it so salty. So I want to kind of get away from this labeling the feelings by putting them into a pigeonhole, a category, and say, well, I felt regret, I felt disappointment, I felt guilt, and I want to just say, that's it. I just felt that. And you're asking me, how are you? And how have you been? Well, this is how I've been. And that's it. I don't want you to see it as a problem that I had these feelings, and I don't need you to do anything about it. All I expect is that you just acknowledge, oh, okay, cool. A bit like, oh, I had a headache, and there is and it's nice to feel that sympathy or empathy, like, oh, sorry to hear that, but then that's it. I'm not looking for you to then try and make me feel better, because I don't see it as feeling better, like, because that's the comparison, that's the sort of valuing thing. So that's the first thing then, is that it's not a problem. But then what is the problem? Because that's the perception within society, I don't know how global it is, but most will see the so-called feeling bad is a problem. So when is it a problem, and when isn't it a problem? So that's the next thing I want to talk about. And all right, let me type this up so you can see how I'm going to approach this. Debilitation. Don't know what I've done here. Right. Hope I've spelt that right. So a debilitation is a handicap. So it's like you've broken your leg, you are debilitated, or you've got some kind of disease like chickenpox, so you have to lie down. You are debilitated, and you can't do the things that you normally do, like going out and doing your food shopping, or going to work, or playing Borderlands. You have chickenpox, and you are completely wiped out, and you have to lie down. Or you've got a broken leg, so you can't go for a walk. And it can be the same sort of thing with mental health conditions. So what you might consider a problem, such as feeling guilt, feeling grief, feeling sadness, if there's a way to measure that, so I'm feeling sadness level 2, well, that's just, your day-to-day kind of ups and downs. My character died, or my internet was out for 3 hours, I felt disappointed. Well, that's kind of normal. It's like, or I felt frustrated that, my USB cable snapped. But it never kind of gets to that point where it debilitates you. So a bit like, say we compare the difference between, right, you sprained your ankle. Okay, it's fairly minor, so you can sort of hobble your way along to the supermarket and do your food shopping. It's slightly painful, but you're not debilitated. You don't have to lie down and lying in a hospital bed and you've got that thing there holding it in place and you've got a cast. And so it's the same thing with a level of a problem emotion, let's say. So there's day-to-day anxiety, like, is my delivery going to show up today? You keep looking out the window. That might be, anxiety level 2 out of 10 or something. It's like, and then there's some frustration along with that. But then you take it further and further along that scale. I'm just making up some arbitrary scale. And then you've got up to like 8 or 9 kind of intense anxiety, and we're getting into a clinical condition. So that is a problem which does need to be addressed. Or you've got something like chronic depression, which has anxiety and depression kind of go together. And then you've got like bipolar disorder and various other kind of properly diagnosed clinical psychological conditions. And those are problems, and people need to go and see a therapist, they need to take medication, they need to actually address it as a problem. But in comparison to that, if I feel a bit down because I couldn't get my internet to work today, well, that's a kind of level of frustration. It's slightly annoying, but it's nowhere near comparable in intensity and to something like a medical condition, a psychological condition that needs medication and therapy and ongoing kind of treatment. So it's not a problem. If I've got a headache and it's mild, I may take paracetamol, I may do nothing about it, but it's kind of annoying. It's there, but it doesn't debilitate me. It doesn't actually stop me from the day that I had planned. It can kind of weaken me a little bit. It's a bit like my shield's slightly broken, but other than that, it's going to recharge before I know it. So when people hear about your so-called bad feelings, they don't really consider, like immediately they're like, I'm sorry you're feeling sad. And they're already like problem solving mode, and it's not a problem. It's like a day-to-day kind of up and down. But again, I don't want to put the so-called good feelings into that category of up and these ones are down. It's just like the weather. It's rainy, it's windy. There's this whole range of different human emotions. But as long as they're kind of within a certain range intensity, like even if you're like really up, as in elated, you're like so buzzed and positive, that can be a debilitation as well. It's like you're so kind of hyper and like, yeah, let's do it, let's go. Even that can be, it stops you from focusing and getting stuff done. But it's not a problem. I mean, that is a problem, or can be a problem, but like the feeling of guilty for, I don't know, for something you remembered doing years ago and that's kind of bothering you, or you remember a friend that's died, and it's been a few years, but that's, that's upsetting you. But it's not so upsetting that you have to just drop everything and, take time off. That's a different thing. So it's good to kind of clarify, well, how intense is this feeling? Is it actually debilitating? So just like the difference between having a broken leg and having a mild headache or a little bit of a cold or a bad stomach, it's like, okay, I feel it, but it's not that big of a deal. I don't even need to address it as a problem. Okay. So the next thing I want to get onto is this idea of facts versus feelings. Okay. So let's look at that. Facts versus feelings, and these get confused a lot, especially when you tell someone. Like I'll start with an example, and that will hopefully illustrate it. So this is one that I haven't felt for a long time, but so soon after I got divorced, and I just found somewhere to live, and it was in a shared place, and I wasn't able to have my daughter come around, and she was tiny at the time. She was about 2, I think, just about 2, so there was no way that she would come and stay with me. And then eventually, after, I don't know, it must have been about 1.5 years of that. Yeah, she would have been 2 after I moved out of the shared place and eventually found myself a place on my own. And one of the main reasons for having that place on my own was that I could have my little one come and visit me and spend some time with me. So I was still going through that turmoil of the divorce and separation, and at the same time feeling like, oh, I don't get to spend time with my daughter, and maybe I'm a bit of a shit dad for having left, and so on. And then soon at the time, as soon as I told that to someone, they'd immediately shift from listening to what I'm saying to, oh, but you're not a shit dad. So we've shifted from from feelings to facts. You are. So that's a fact. That's something you can kind of say for definitely. So, okay, what would be a good dad? Like, if I was abusing the child, or if I was neglecting them, or if I, wasn't spending time with them, or if I wasn't giving my money for child support. So, that's kind of extreme. And one of my friends, I remember saying that, oh, it's really good that you stuck around. And he was from a different culture where fathers would just disappear completely. They'd leave, as in completely leave. Whereas, here in the UK, we do stick around. The divorced parents do manage to kind of get along, and the child kind of grows up with both parents and has their time kind of separate. But this friend, coming from a different culture, he just said like, oh wow, it's really good of you to stick around. And I just thought, well, Well, yeah, of course. You know, this is my child. I want to be in their life. I want them to be in my life. So yeah, sure. And in spite of the whole divorce side of things, I kind of made it work somehow, kept it amicable. And so in that sort of scale of the dad just disappearing off somewhere to sticking around, paying the child support, taking the time, arranging the weekend, and giving the child food and not neglecting them. I was a good dad, but I felt like a shit dad, a bad dad. And whenever I tried to, so not this friend, but other friends, and I said, the moment that I had to take her back to her mum's house, I would feel this sense of loss, this sense of like this little magical weekend ending. I would feel like a failure, like I'd not really achieved the dad status somehow, or that I could have done better. So all of those things. And I was telling this to a friend, and they were seeing it as a problem, I think, because they were taking the conversation away from the feelings, because I was trying to tell them about the feelings, like, this is how I feel right now, which might have been like in person or over the phone or in WhatsApp texting. And because of my Samaritans training, I could see like, okay, conversation is moving away from the feelings, and we're kind of now, I appreciate they were trying to support me and make me feel better, but it's like, well, you're not really listening anymore. You're actually trying to make me feel better and seeing this as a problem. And I would prefer that you didn't see it as a problem and just hear me out. I want to tell you how I feel, and for me it isn't a problem. I'm okay with these feelings. I know that I'm a good dad, except that I'm feeling like a bad dad. And maybe they're confused that, well, how can you feel like a bad dad if you're not? There's like this mismatch somehow of, okay, well, because you are a good dad, you should automatically feel like you're a good dad. And the same the other way, I suppose, if I had been a shit dad, like my friend from the different culture was talking about, if I had completely left, then wherever I was living then, in a different town, for example, I'd be feeling upset that I'd, guilty or whatever. Then those two things should go together. But what I was trying to explain is that, well, they're two separate things. One is a feeling and one is a fact. And they don't go together. They're not like automatic. I am feeling like I could have done more, that I'm not very good at this, and that I'd like you just to listen to that, if that's okay. And don't try and make me feel any better. Just listen to what I have to say. But yeah, they were just... to me, it felt like they were belittling what I was feeling by shifting the conversation away from how I was feeling to looking at the facts. And, I didn't want to sort of correct them and say, look, I'm sorry, but I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's not really what I want right now. And this happens quite a lot. And on Twitch, this was happening as well. That I was saying I felt disappointed. It's starting to come back to me now. I think it was about 2 weeks ago. That, I'm 53 and I feel like I've just achieved nothing. There's nothing really big and meaty that I can show the world that, look, I did this. This is my legacy. I don't have anything like that. No kind of big, like Nobel Prize type of thing to then show the world, look, I did this. And then, the conversation shifted from me being able to talk about my feelings to then, oh, but you've done so many things, and yes, I know that, and I'm proud of that. I've learned lots of languages, I've traveled lots of places. Yeah, that's fine. Those are facts. Those are historical events that occurred. But immediately we've gone from the feelings over to maybe there's some correlation between what you've done and how you feel. But it's about how I feel right now. And it's not a problem. Then these feelings are not like a level of intensity of some kind of psychological condition that needs medication, that needs problem solving. They're just how I feel right now. I'm telling you how I felt yesterday, and it lasted for a few hours, and then they were gone. And they were not debilitating. And it's interesting how people will tend to shy away from just focusing on the feelings themselves. Well, tell me more. How was it? Did you feel it in your chest? Sometimes emotions are not purely, you've got to feel them somewhere. Do you feel it in your stomach, in your face, in your shoulders? And let's just stick to talking about the feeling itself and not move the conversation to problem solving or talking about facts. Allow me to feel bad and let me tell you about it, and let me tell you about it in more detail. And I'd like you to ask me more about it. Like, oh, so what kind of... how long did it last, and how strong was it, and how did it affect you? So we stick to what I'm trying to say. Like, how were you? How was your day? Well, I felt a bit of a failure most of the day. Oh, really? Oh, where do you feel that you'd failed? Oh, I felt like I didn't achieve anything with my life. Oh, was there something in particular you would have liked to achieve? So that way we're sticking to the feelings, not like, oh, I'm really sorry. Oh, but you have achieved so much. Oh, don't feel that way. It's like, no, this is what I feel. This is who I am right now. I'm presenting that to you. Can you please just, this is who I am today. This is who I am right now for the next half an hour or an hour. And that's all I'm asking. So when you ask me how I am, I don't like this thing of just like, yeah, I'm good. It's like, well, actually I'm not good, and I'd like to tell you about it. And if you'd like to listen, maybe you're not comfortable listening to the so-called difficult or problem feelings. Anyway, so that was facts versus feelings, and it's quite easy for people who see difficult feelings as problems or problems they need to solve to then switch or try and switch the conversation and move it away from the feelings to facts to try and mitigate them, which I really disagree with. And then this one will be a short one. So number 4 is more the physiological, so the chemical side of it. And hopefully I'll try and sum things up. I don't know how far I'll get. Okay, so oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine. Okay. A little bit bigger. Okay. So there's a book called Sapiens. I should have got the book really, but never mind. If you're interested, it's by an author called Yuval Noah Harari, and it's up there on the bestseller lists, but it's like a history of the human race. And in one of the chapters, I think it's chapter 19, he looks at the whole concept of happiness and what it is, and looks at it in terms of psychology, but then he looks at it in terms of physiology. And from a physiological point of view, a purely hormonal point of view, if we put happiness, feeling good or contentment or whatever you want to call it, on a scale, then it's determined by these hormones. And some people have a kind of set limit of how much then that they produce. So they might produce only a certain amount of oxytocin, and the achievement thing, like one of the reasons people play video games is that you get this dopamine hit. So by completing a challenge within a video game, within like a mini game inside a game, achievement unlocked, you get a dopamine hit. And the dopamine, I'm not sure which ones of these are neurotransmitters and which ones are hormones, so I'll kind of chop and change. Anyone with more kind of pharmacological knowledge will be able to correct me. But there's, from person to person, there's a difference in the amount that their body can produce. So they're never going to feel good, if you like. So you could go back to that whole thing of feeling good and feeling bad. It's as though their kind of highest happiness set point, if you like, is determined by these. So if they're genetically predisposed to only producing a certain, 3 out of 10, say, of the happy hormones, right? You can think of these as the happy hormones. If that person can only produce a level of 3 out of 10 of oxytocin, serotonin and dopamine, then that's it for the rest of their life. No matter what they do, getting the right job, getting the right car, finding the right person to spend their life with, they're never going to feel good. And okay, that could be a problem, but they need to just face that and realize that these are the cards I've been dealt, and these are the genetic RNG that I've got, and I can make it a tiny bit better. It's like your height, right? You have a certain height, so you can change your width. Like you can eat more, you can develop your body through, if you do bodybuilding. So there's like quite major changes, or you can be like extremely overweight, or you can be extremely thin. So sideways you can change quite a lot, but up and down. So that's how I'm comparing it. So your height, once you're an adult, you reach a certain height, and then that height is set, and then that's your height for the rest of your life. You might change like, a few millimeters here and there, but I think at the end of the day, the intervertebral discs kind of squash down, so you're like, I don't know, about 2 or 3 millimeters shorter by the end of the day. But other than that, there's no major change through the rest of your life. And it's kind of like this. So here, so your kind of happiness level in terms of physiology, the amount of happy hormones that you can produce is set. So if you're feeling like you're, just to go back to this thing of the facts and the feelings, so you have a nice house, you have a nice car, all the things that the happiness illusion is trying to, this is a whole different conversation, the happiness illusion, the concept of the happily ever after that we all kind of buy into, that if we achieve career success, if we find the right person to be with, if we get money, then we will be happy. And I'm saying, now, if your happiness set point, the height of your happiness hormones are only going to get up to 3 or 4, then no matter what amazing job you get, what amazing house you live in, that you can't get any happier than what is determined by your hormones. So we see this with film stars and rich people, but they've got everything and they're still not happy. So then we're coming back to this thing of facts and feelings that we can't sort of correlate between, but they should be happy, shouldn't they? Because they have this. These are the facts. They've got a nice car, they've got 3 Rolls Royces, they've got billions in the bank, they've got a nice house, but they're depressed. So you're taking the conversation away again from the feelings. That's not how they feel. That's just a list of what they have. And those things don't really, they're just imagined values. You go back to some Stone Age person, they see a car or a house. They don't see the value of it. We see the value because we've grown up with that. And we immediately try and make this correlation. They have this, that is a fact, therefore they should feel happy. The two should go together. Like me with I am a good dad, therefore I should feel like a good dad. So the person listening is like, hang on, these two things should go together, but then they don't. Well, just stop. Put that idea of your correlation aside and just listen to what's going on. It's like, oh, this person is not happy. And they actually can't be happy. No matter how they try, they're never going to be happy. They could be happier, like a little bit, a tiny bit, like me getting taller. I could, put on high heels and I could be a tiny bit taller. But, I'm not going to be like a basketball player kind of tall ever. Unless I get, some major surgery or whatever. It's just not going to happen. It's set for the rest of my life. And so just to kind of look at it from a physiological and just correlate those two things of the facts and the feelings. Anyway, I've rambled quite enough, I think. So let's see what we went through. So I started off by saying why I don't want to be cheered up. If I'm feeling bad. I want to just be allowed to feel bad. And I'd like you to just listen to me talking about how I feel and put aside this idea of it's good or it's bad. Is it a problem? Well, if it's like very, very intense, you know, like I'm feeling suicidal, for example, or it's so debilitating that I can't do anything else. I feel so bad that it's like having a broken leg or having chicken pox, and I can't do what I normally do. So then it is a problem, and I need treatment, and I need maybe medication and therapy. But otherwise, it's just day to day. So I'd just like you to listen, if that's okay. So I talked about, is it a problem? Feeling bad is not a problem that needs to be solved. Facts versus then debilitation. You know, how intense is it? Does it need addressing? Does it need to be seen as a problem? Facts versus feelings, and let's try and stick to the feelings and not keep jumping over to the facts. And the fallacy that because there are these facts doesn't mean the feelings should match up with them. So if someone's a bad person, they should feel bad. Or if someone's a good person, they should feel good. It doesn't necessarily go together. It just seems as though it should, but... And then a physiological kind of angle on it. Like, oh, how do we feel things? Feelings come from this. From a physiological point of view. Anyway, that was a very, very long-winded way of saying, if you ask me how I am, I'd like to tell you. And sometimes I'll give you the quick, yeah, I'm good, cheers, how are you? To, yesterday I was feeling quite down, and I'd like you to listen, if that's okay, and not see it as a problem or not try and fix it, because I don't need to be fixed. I'm okay with that. Anyway, that's enough meanderings and ramblings from me. Comments down below, or, you know, come and talk to me about it on Twitch. And yeah, hopefully that's kind of cleared up my take on things, and hopefully it'll help you to kind of look at feelings in a very different way that maybe you hadn't considered how you feel in this kind of way. Okay, that's it. Like and subscribe and all of that business. Anyway, wish you all a very good day, whatever you're doing, and yeah, see you next time.